Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. We've got our 2022 F1 season predictions. You ready for this, Kyle? Because I'm
ready.
As shit not.
Let's go. Let's get this year underway.
Oh, this is going to be a tough one. I spent a long time thinking about a lot of these, and I'm still not confident, but you know what? That's fine.
That's part of the fun.
Absolutely.
Give it a go. Put your opinions out there.
Yep. No
hold bars approach.
Absolutely, and we don't have to look back at it until next year when we can we can cry. So, but before...
I don't think about last year.
No. Yeah, you had a couple of shockers there, I think.
I do think that every driver will score points this year.
Okay.
I think that in terms of the Haas drivers, I think it will be Mazepin that will outperform Mick Schumacher for the year.
Anyway, before we get into it, let us know your predictions for this year. So we're going to go through a few categories. Feel free to leave them in the comments and let us know what you think is going to happen this year, because I've seen quite a few different takes. So I'm always curious to see people's different angles of what's going to happen, and I feel like all of them could happen this year. It's very much a wild card year. So
yeah, I mean, I've seen some that are maybe a bit on the extreme end, and I've kind of maybe said, okay, a form of that could be realistic, but maybe not the whole form some people are putting out there. But then maybe, I don't know. Yeah,
but like immediately, like say last year, those sort of things you would have just immediately dismissed, but you're like, well, there could be some credibility to it this year with some of the
calls. So, yeah, okay. So, maybe I've been going, a few pages deep in the old Google searches and finding some small fry journalists trying to spark up some bizarre...
yes, the journalists, yes.
Like us, what do you mean? You'd say we're not journalists? I don't know. I take offense to that.
Let's get right into our bold predictions. Do you wanna start us off, Kyle?
All right, I'll start off. First one I've got is very much some dipping into a prediction last year and doubling down on it, because that's what you do, right? You might be wrong one year, but then you prove that you were on the right track the next year.
Right.
So, my first prediction is that every driver will score a point on at least 2 separate occasions, not just once.
Wow, okay.
So last year, of course, forgetting, even though I was very aware of Haas and their position, that it was unlikely they'd be anywhere, I still made the call everyone would get a point.
Yep.
And then, of course, when I made it, I realized, oh, wait, it's so unlikely to happen that I could have thought about it maybe a little more. But with that out of the equation for this year, with everything we've talked about, I think it's almost too easy a call to say just make the same call and say everyone's going to make a point, and it's probably cheap for myself just to use the same thing, so I've upgraded it to say on 2 separate occasions.
Well, in that vein, I feel a bit silly because one of my predictions was every driver will score points this year. So
you stole mine from last year. That's illegal.
I thought I was being clever. I didn't know you were going to go with the same. You went bolder than I did, but I just thought it was funny that I was going to steal one of yours, and then you... All right, goodbye, everyone. That was a great video.
You're the arsehole for being a thief.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we'll see if... Let's do like a double or nothing thing for you. If I get it right, it's just normal points. If it's only, if, say, every driver just scores, once...
Points on one occasion.
On one occasion. But you know what? I'll give you double points if you get yours right.
Yeah, no, I'll take it.
Seeing as yours is almost exactly the same as the one I have, just bolder. So, But yeah, I mean, similar to you, I do think this year it's very, very plausible that every driver will score at the very least once. Twice, like even like having a little think about you saying twice, I think it's possible there's a couple of drivers that I don't know will score twice.
Yes.
I'm thinking no, you know what? I won't mention that because we're getting into some stuff a bit later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a couple of drivers I don't expect to score more than once. With my second prediction, which is that we will get all 23 races as planned this year with no substitute.
Oh, that's a good prediction.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
that's good.
We've got 23 this year. The last 2 years, obviously, because of COVID, they've had to... They've never reached their, I think it was 22 they had... Was it 22 they had last year? but they had to substitute and they had doubles at
substitute or move some around.
Yeah. So I do think this year with the 23 that they have planned, I think they will go to every race as planned, and they won't need to double up at races or
even shuffle any or anything.
Won't need to shuffle.
That's good.
So I think at this point, with the 2 years of COVID, I think while it's still kind of running rampant, I think the ones that are least likely to happen, your Canadas, your Singapores, your Japans, the fact that they've still organized to have them this year, I haven't heard as much about whether or not there's COVID still running rampant, but I think they're going to be desperate, particularly with Singapore and whatnot, bringing back a deal for, another 7 years and whatnot. People, love Canada. They love Suzuka. I think they'll be desperate to get back to those countries. So I don't know if some of those tracks will want to do 3 years out. That seems like suicide, considering how many other tracks they've got potentially coming through, that they could just be like, okay, we'll just replace it with this one. And they've had a good couple of years in a row. Maybe we'll just, sorry, Canada. Yep. We'll just replace you with, I don't know, Portugal or something, because they've hosted for the last 3 years. So
good call. Yeah. I didn't think too much outside the box like that. So
yeah, that was my one sort of outside the box, and I was like, oh, I like that one. That's going in there. So yeah, what was your second prediction?
My second one is probably my most boring one. I believe that both of the Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari drivers will all get wins throughout the year. And I say that it's kind of similar to what some people say, because a lot of people like to make the call saying that they think Sainz will win a race. Mm-hmm. And I've gone, well, rather than just saying that because I think that's a decent call too, I'll actually say there's 6 of them, I think, because I think there's still a bit there. There's still, Checo got to prove himself. There's still, I guess, both Ferrari drivers have to get into a point where they can win. Some people, of course, have called that their car's going to be a god this year. I might think different to that, but still I think it'll be tricky. And that, of course, Russell's also going to get his win. So I think of my safest of the 3 is that one. I thought about maybe extending it further, but then I went, you know what? No, I'm going to sit with the top. Those 6 drivers, I think, will all get wins this year.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's... I think that's completely fair. I can see all 6 winning at least one. Some of them winning more than others.
Yes.
But
if they only won 6 between them, that'd be a call.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll. No, you know what? You can do your third prediction, because I did technically 2 in a row. So,
okay.
You
I'll
go
do
your
my third
third as well.
So my third prediction. And this is one I cooked up more recent than the other 2. And I'm still not sure how I want to go about it. But it's touching on something we haven't seen for a little bit. Mm-hmm. In terms of the driver market. And I think throughout the year, before the end of the year, there will be 2 seats that will change during the course of the year. I don't know which seats, but I think there will be some shifts while the year is still going. I know a few years ago we had a bit of that going on, sometimes related to Red Bull or other, movements going around. They made it a bit early. We haven't really seen it as recent, but I think this year is probably going to be most prone for something like that.
Okay.
I think maybe a few drivers' weaknesses might be shown with these type of cars, from what I've heard and read, in that they're quite difficult to drive. And I think teams, considering we think there might be some pretty big and quite likely changes for next year, I think a few of them, might really push on it early while they still have a chance, to say, look, you're not keeping up your end of the bargain. We want to change things around and that. So that's my third and most bold call, I think.
Wow. Okay.
What do you think of that one?
Yeah, that's pretty bold. I think I disagree, just because being the first year of regulations, I do think that I'm thinking if it was just a couple of drivers that struggled with the new regulations and maybe took a little bit to get up to speed, maybe if you said 2 changes, if there was 2 drivers in particular that were really struggling and everyone else was like, oh no, they're fine, then okay. Maybe I would look at that. I think a lot more will struggle. I think there's going to be, maybe not half the field. Let's say a third of the field or a quarter of the field I think they'll take a little while to get up to speed with the new cars. And I think you kind of have to give them this year to sort of get into it.
Yeah.
So that'd be my only counter to that. And I think
that's a fair counter.
But
there's a reason it's a bold call.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and I went with 2 as well. I was like 1. I'm like, no, I'm going to double down again and go 2. I think.
yeah, that's true.
I just personally feel like it's a time where that's more likely than even in the future, and I feel like if I kind of want to make this call again, I'm going to make it now.
Okay, cool.
I wanted to make something quite bold, because if it's wrong, I'll go, yeah, okay. But if it's right, I'll look like a bloody genius.
You will, yeah. It'll be a good one. All right, I guess I'll go my third one. My third bold prediction is I believe George and Lewis will come together at least once during the season.
Oh, cheeky.
And I do... Yeah, I think it'll probably be in the back half of the season as well. I think in the first half of the season, I think George will probably try and keep his nose a little... I think he'll still want to try and prove himself, but I think he'll try and keep his nose a little bit more
You don't
clean.
think he'd be in a rush to try and prove himself, right? He's got this opportunity. Let's start up easy and then
I also don't necessarily think he'll be in a position in maybe the first half of the season to be racing side by side with Lewis to the point
or
where,
on a consistent basis.
So I think in the back half of the season, once he's come to grips with that car, I think he'll be in more positions to race alongside Lewis, and I think that'll be at a point where he's like, I need to prove that I can be faster than Lewis. So those were our 3 bold predictions. We're going to get into our categories now. So the first one I have on the list, we have the wooden spoon driver. So who we think is going to end up bottom of the points table.
And a driver that's there full time, not a driver that might stub in for illness or something like that.
Like Kubica.
Exactly.
Damn,
that was my guess. My guy, I
gotta... damn. So wooden spoon driver, take it away, Carl. Who do you think will end up
So this may allude to other things as well, maybe, I don't know. But I have gone with Guan Yu Zhao for wooden spoon driver. I don't think there'll be a clear back marker. I think it'll be mostly a front end and then a midfield kind of formula. This is partly, I guess, more in my opinion of Alpha, and I think this year almost starting the furthest behind of that kind of, let's say, backmarker trio we've traditionally had. And I think as part of that, when you look at the drivers that are there, again, I'm not saying this, I think I mentioned it in my 2023 drivers predictions, in that I think Guan Yu Zhao is a fine driver, but I just think that with that being the weakest car, do I think that, let's say, someone like a Mazepin is going to, in average, do worse than him if I think their car's going to be slightly better? And I think Mazepin having that extra year is probably still going to elevate him enough where he's just going to be ahead. And even if he's a tiny bit behind Zhao, let's say, still in skill, the car, I think the Haas will still be quite far ahead of where the Alpha's going to start. And therefore, I believe that, then it's more a question of Zhao versus Bottas, and I don't, you don't need to think about that one for too long, let's be honest. So that's my wooden spoon driver. Who have you got?
I have also got Guan Yu Zhou.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I pretty much echo all of your opinions. I do think, you look at the last season, the 3 teams that were at the back were the Alpha, the Williams, the Haas. I back Williams to continue their trajectory. I back Haas to make a big step forward, and I do expect Alpha to sort of just drop back a little bit compared to those teams. Again, like you said, I don't think it's going to be... I've also predicted they'll score points, so I think it will be... Considering he's the only rookie driver as well in a team that's probably going to be... if it's not the weakest, it's going to be one of the weakest cars.
Yes.
I think there's a very real possibility he will end up last in the standings. So, pretty well aligned on that. There you go.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we went different, because last year we went pretty different on a few ideas at the back.
We did, yeah. And this one you could say Mazepin.
You could argue a few guys. You could even argue a Latifi or something, right?
You
know what I mean?
Yeah. If you really wanted to go bold, you could predict an Aston or an Alpine really dropping back, and
I did think about that a tiny bit. I did give a brief thought to someone like Ocon, and I went,
I had a brief thought to like a Stroll or something if Aston really dropped back, or
yep.
But No, I didn't entertain that thought too long.
Not for long.
No. All right, well, let's move on to Wooden Spoon Team. I feel like we might be pretty similar on this one as well, but let us know who you have.
Yes, of course. I have gone with Alpha. Similar reasons that we just said. Again, I don't think they're a bad outfit, but I think really, I guess it's a lot about potential as well. And I think last year they actually had at some races a pretty strong car, but from even like a strategy and an actual race weekend point of view, they really didn't seem to ever like make it. You know, most teams you can think about a point last year where they made a good call or they maybe put a driver somewhere to help the other driver, you know, and you thought, oh, that was, you know, a moment of brilliance. But with Alpha, you didn't really have that at all, and they kind of just had a car enough to kind of get there now and then, but you still didn't see those splashes, or even, you know, even a few years ago when Leclerc was there and you see him sometimes suddenly jump up out of nowhere, you know, yes, they may have had a slightly stronger car, but they still made some really bold and smart strategy calls when the weather was a mix-up, but you really haven't seen a lot of that, and they're not going through a huge amount of change either, so I still think they're an okay outfit, but there's no real other, like, worse outfit now that exists that's going to be default behind them, and especially when we've seen Williams, you know, change everything within in terms of their technology and personnel and that, and a massive amount of investment which have been realized, and Haas have already said is basically all in on this year, while Alpha is kind of just still tutoring along. So are they going to be ages off? No, but they're not going to have as many shining moments as the others, I think, is my opinion.
And I will echo you on that. Is Alfa Romeo I've got as Wooden Spoon Team as well. So not much to add. Yeah, like I said, I just see them dropping back compared to Williams and Haas. I think it probably doesn't help them. I know they've got Bottas, but they've got 2 brand new drivers for this year as well. Again, one of them being a rookie. I just don't know that that's going to help them. I think they could come back throughout the the rule change. You know, they've got the.
I agree.
If the Ferrari engine is as good as Ferrari say it's going to be, if they can get their car together and put a really strong engine in it, then I think they could absolutely jump back up in future years. But for this year, I see them mostly sitting around at the back. Hopefully your Bottas can show what he can do, like he did in a Williams car that it was sort of just at the point it was starting to fall off, and he could make some really outstanding performances with that as well. So maybe he can do that with the Alpha as well, but time will tell. So so let's move on to our most improved or standout driver compared to last year or compared to like their expectations. Let us know who you have, Kyle.
Me? I'll let the dog go first.
What do you think?
What do you think? Nothing.
Okay.
Whoever they're dreaming about. It's so this one's a little tricky because we talked about a bit how we want to almost define this, because we just think about best driver. There's maybe a few drivers you have a good case for, but that's because they've been so good recently, you almost want to say, well, there's no reason why they're not good again, right?
Yep.
But this is more trying to think of who is almost going to be unexpectedly good. And so, again, referencing to our 2023 predictions video, I basically have to back Perez to fall into this category. If I think he's going to push enough of a case where Red Bull want to consider him for another year, as I predict is more likely than most other people predict.
He's going to need to do something special. So.
Yes, and when you consider that last year he had some moments, but you can still say there's a lot of room for potential improvement there.
All right, so I have, for my most improved / standout driver, I have gone with Yuki Tsunoda.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I had a few in mind. Yuki always made the most sense when I was comparing them, though. Last year he had his moments. You could see just how fast he was in some moments, pretty rare moments, but some moments nonetheless.
Yep.
Particularly the very last race, I think that'll give him a lot of confidence in that Abu Dhabi race where he finished 4th, didn't he? Was it 4th or 5th? Yeah, 4th.
And it was a pretty genuine, well-fought 4th as well.
Last year there was all this talk, particularly in the first half of the season, how he just wasn't really taking it seriously, and he was getting a lot of flack from people saying it's like if you're in the sport, you need to be doing it properly. You can't just sort of, unless you're Kimi Räikkönen, you can't just show up and do it do
especially
whatever you
being
want.
he's still trying to prove himself as a future bull driver, right?
Yeah. Given what I've seen and what I've heard, what I've read about, he's making a real effort to be that kind of driver, to take it way more seriously, to improve his fitness and his strength. The media stuff, he's not just saying things that he probably shouldn't, and he has gotten a lot better at all that. And I think that will help him with that, not necessarily the speed, but definitely the consistency. And I think he'll be up there a bit more often. And I think we'll see a big jump from him.
I think, as I said, I think there's still a few contenders. I think the other one that might be more standout is Daniel Ricciardo, in terms of a driver you might not mention in the past. But again, because you look at, if this whole point is how they improve from, how they were most recently on the track, he's a pretty good candidate there. I guess if neither of us had made that bold call on Checo or Yuki, that might have been more of an obvious pick. It'd be interesting to see if we're both completely right, completely wrong, or on the mark as the year goes on.
All right, well, let's move on to the most improved / standout team. So who have you gone with for your team?
Well, I don't think this one was hard. There's maybe two you could toss up, but I mean, is it anyone else other than Haas? I mean, unless you really, unless you have some inside knowledge, or you really think, let's be real, just because they've said they've been working on it for ages, it still might not, it still might fall in shambles in that. But then I'm thinking through the other teams, and I'm thinking who else could then make, a step up. Almost every team towards the end of last year kind of finished where we maybe expected them to, and as well going to the new year, there's maybe an argument for a few I could think that could jump up a little more. But then is that more likely than Haas, in my opinion? I don't think so.
They were so far in 10th that they might as well have been 13th some days.
Exactly,
so,
yes. If they still had Caterham and Marussia, you'd a big conversation if they were even fighting them, How about you? What's your mind at?
So I had quite a few contenders, I think all relatively valid. Haas obviously being one of them. I considered AlphaTauri as well. I think, again, with if I think Tsunoda's going to do as well as he is, and I predicted Gasly with the driver predictions that we did. By the way,
he's gonna
get the Red Bull seat. So I would have predicted them to, AlphaTauri to jump up if I think both them are going to go. You could argue someone like an Aston Martin, considering they were pretty far off this year what you would have expected. They were
probably going to be my second pick, Aston Martin.
They could absolutely jump a few spots and really take everyone off guard. That'd be a bit of a bolder prediction. I even entertained the Ferrari one. If there's a lot of people out there that think Ferrari will win the Constructors. At the end of the day, I did also go with Haas, though. So
okay, thinking, what else has he got left?
Yeah,
Alfa
There's
Romeo.
Not many teams. So slightly harder for me because there were so many choices. But every time I compared it back to Haas, I'm just like, Haas are gonna, considering where they were and where they have been for quite a while now. I think, even if they, like you said, jump to 8th, that's a huge result for them, I think.
Yes.
And I do expect them to jump up quite a lot compared to where they have been. So we had a very big discussion in the middle of the recording. You came up with a good category that we added in very last minute, and I had to decide. But let us know, what was the category that you came up with, and who was your choice for it?
Well, the category we came up with, I don't know if we decided on a name. Do we have a name?
Oh, I just said the team that will go backward the most, because we had our most improved team, and you suggested, okay, well, what if we had a team that predicted a team that would go backwards the most? I'm like, cool. So we just 20 minutes worth of discussion.
20 days worth. It's been a while. I need a shower.
Yep. Who do you think will go backwards the most this year?
The reason I got thinking about it is because this would relate a lot to our news video, which should be, I guess, a video previous to this one. So if you haven't seen that, maybe that'll give you some extra context as to why I'm bringing this one up. But I believe that Alpine, compared to last year, will pretty much fall off the rocks a bit. I think last year that they didn't actually have that solid package, but it's just on certain weekends. They just had the strategy and their drivers in tune and everything together, they could pull off, some pretty freak performances. But based on the changes they've made, some of the things you've heard, I think that coming into the new year, they probably have almost like the least it feels like they have the least direction of what they want to do. I know I've heard a little bit discussed as well about how they're still trying like a management structure that's a bit different than traditionally what other teams do, and there's still... they had, it was Marcin Bukowski, right, who was their temporary leader, who was apparently leading that kind of thing, and now he's already left and they're kind of changing it up again, so you'd obviously say, well, that's obviously not working, and these are still things that are kind of happening, i.e. a lot of this, it's not really working going into the new regs, and therefore you'd think, well, when everyone else, for the most part, looks quite stable and, almost confident in what they've set up going forward, in comparison, you'd go, well, if this is what we're seeing at the face, what's it looking like under the hood, right?
I also have Alpine. For the same reasons, yeah. I had 20 minutes to think about it, but yeah, I went back to the same conversations that we had. Yeah, with their structure, it seems a bit chaos there at Alpine at the moment. And I think, like I said, I think they're sort of a year behind, your Astons and those teams that are trying to come through. So, I do expect them to drop back. Also, they're still... they're the only ones that are running that Renault engine. I have heard nothing regarding that Renault engine. I've
no
heard
news, maybe good
no
news, but
yeah, it could be. But I've heard Honda talking about it. I've heard Mercedes and I've heard Ferrari all talking
quite
about
a bit of Ferrari saying we're happy.
A lot, yeah, yeah, and talking about how they're getting to grips with the new whatever the 10% ethanol fuel that they've got to add to 5% ethanol. All three teams seem to be pretty vocal about what's happening with their engines. You hear nothing from Renault at all. And given again what's happening behind the scenes at their team, and it seems like it's something's about to give there, I think. Again, not to say if they can get that structure right, if they do manage to get on top of that engine, especially given the freeze as well, they kind of need to get something that's at least serviceable. If they can do that, then there's no reason, again, they can't come back through again. But on to the two fun ones again. We're going to, like I said, last year we did who we think would just be Constructors champion. This year we've gone a little bit different in that you suggested actually that we should do top three for both constructors and drivers, because we think that's a little bit that might make for a little bit more interesting conversation for this year in particular. So we'll start at who you think will be number 3 in your Constructors Championship.
So this may disappoint some of the more ambitious of those out there, and there is quite a lot of them based on a lot of thumbnails and articles and Twitter speak I've seen. But my third team, I think, again, Ferrari got third Constructors last year. So I think, again, they'll get third again. As a general trend, I guess I'll say, is that a lot of people think this is a good time for a shake-up, but I think... based on what my other two are likely to be, I still think that there's not going to be too much massive shake-up in terms of one going this way and one going that way, right? Except for aforementioned Alpine, I guess. I put Ferrari as number 3. Again, I guess the argument is against most of the others that they, were fighting with last year. I still think their momentum is on the up. I don't think it's up enough to get any higher, but I don't think they'll be that far off higher than they were last year.
Well, the fact that you think that both of them will get race wins in that Ferrari as well as, proof that you think they'll be a little bit closer. So,
exactly.
I think that's completely fair. Do you want to go all your top 3 and then I'll go my top 3? So
number
if you want to go number 2
is Haas. No, we're not
Let's go
doing this
Haas.
gag again.
Big
it's
improvement.
Dead. So number 2, I've gone with Red Bull.
Red Bull, okay.
Again, I think there's no reason to see them drop back. They've almost had that history of, having like some highs and they kind of drop back a bit and they have some highs again. I think just based on a few changes of their culture and how they do things, they've got a really solid base now that means I doubt they would fall back again. I think they've got a bit of a head start almost in terms of their maturity as much as Mercedes have, a name you might hear, soon enough, in this list.
Mercedes is number one. Ugh, that's weird.
Yeah, so I guess talk about them together. Mercedes 1, Red Bull 2. Again, I'll roll out the fact that some people think maybe McLaren or Ferrari will sneak in there. I just don't see it happening. I think maybe next year, the year after, it's more common. Again, as we saw a trend more with Mercedes so out in front, and then Ferrari were up there a bit, and then Red Bull were up there a bit and did enough to challenge them, right? Yep. I think we're more likely to see a trend like that happen for some of the other teams, but I think it's more for the top two, Mercedes, Red Bull, and I just think with how good Mercedes are at adapting that I don't think they will have any sort of runaway with it. I think it'll be close, but I still pip them at the top because they've shown that for adapting since they've come, into the sport as a full outfit, that's what they're perfect at doing, right? And even throughout areas of last year on a smaller scale, needing to adapt in short time frames, they adapted amazingly to be able to figure out what the hell was going wrong and challenge. So, yeah, I've got Mercedes the top constructors, Red Bull second, close second, and Ferrari third. Let's say also a close third.
Closer third, yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Right. Okay. I will start off by saying that we have differed slightly. I have got my number 3. I have Red Bull.
Oh, I was hoping you'd be the spicy one. It'd be too boring if we both went safe.
Yeah. So I actually had this as one of my bold predictions before we decided to go top 3 of each.
Good.
One of my predictions was I predicted one of the top 2, or at least one of the top 2 to drop out of the top 2. So one or both of Mercedes, Red Bull to drop out. Having to think about like actually the top 3 constructors, I actually had to give it some thought. I was kind of hedging my bets a bit. It's like, oh, okay, if I just say one of the top 2, I don't have to think about who will drop out. But then you made me choose the top 3, and I'm like,
I figured, when I brought it up and you were like, that's tricky, I'm like, good, he's probably going for something a bit different than if it's tricky.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I had a little bit of a think about it. Mercedes had won, 7 constructors and drivers championships in a row, and obviously they wanted to get the 8th with Lewis, and they still got the constructors. Red Bull had their 1 year where they were like, okay, we can get... Well, I mean, they could have gotten both, but they were obviously pushing for that driver's one. I think they've put a bit more effort into their 2021 car than maybe Mercedes had in terms of resources. You discussed that a bit, I think, in our... Was it season review? I think you said at the end they went pretty hard on it.
Yeah.
I think I said both of them went pretty hard on it. I didn't specify specifically who, but I do think Red Bull probably, given how I think important it seemed to them, I mean, obviously for both of them, but,
they would have had to allocate a lot more to make a jump, while Mercedes were more just allocating to stay at status quo, right?
Yeah, and you've seen Red Bull do exactly the same thing right before the turbo hybrid era as well. With Vettel when he's dominating in that Red Bull, and then come 2014 and they dropped off. The second the new reg started. This is slightly different. These are quite big regulations. I reckon they have a lot of the same teams. They probably learned from their mistakes a little bit, but I do think that 2021 battle will take a toll on Red Bull. So I've got them at third.
Oh, so now the question is, where are you putting your money after this?
Yeah. So at number 2, I have Ferrari.
Yep.
So I know, again, like you said, I know a lot of people have said Ferrari will, they've been a bit, not bold, but I think they just kind of want it to happen more than anything with Ferrari as constructor and, them coming back to the front with the new regulations. And I think they will make a jump. Obviously, I've got them as second. Given all the talk around it, given how much they've been allocating to the 2022 regulations in the season, given the team structure, it seems the drivers, everything there seems it's in a prime position for them. Everything's just sort of come at the right time, and I think it's very, very likely that they will jump into the top 2 again. So I've got them as number 2. And then I have gone with Mercedes as number 1.
I thought you were going with Haas.
Sorry. Man, yeah. How many times can we make that joke this video? Yeah, I think, yeah, again, similar to all your reasons, I think Mercedes they're just so on top of it, and they're so good at adapting. Again, even if they're maybe a little bit off at the start of the season, again, like we saw last year, they know what to do. They've got such a good team. And, with Lewis still being there for this year, they've got, a super experienced driver. You've got a young gun in Russell coming through who's going to want to prove
himself through the whole year. Yeah,
absolutely. So, yeah, I still see Mercedes at the top, but again, similar to you, I see that it's going to be a lot closer than it was in terms of, the top 2 versus the rest. So I think it's going to be relatively close up there. But yeah, I've still pipped Mercedes to take it. So let's move on to top 3 drivers then, because this one could be interesting, especially with, again, like Russell coming in to that Mercedes, and I've obviously predicted Ferrari to be up there as well. So there might be a few interesting ones here. So, but I'll let you go first. Who do you think will finish as top 3 in 2022?
So, again, mine are probably safer, because, again, I'm going down this more safer route. Maybe call it the bitching out route, but that's what I'm going down. I'm going to stick to it. So, I guess starting 3rd, I do have Russell there. Again, you have some of these very enthusiastics going, they genuinely think that he could tackle Hamilton that. And yes, I mean, I did even touch on that idea for our driver predictions when we're saying, look, what were the ramifications if potentially he really comes and storms into that team and stomps over Hamilton, right? But our conclusion was, that's not actually that likely, maybe in the first year or 2, right? So I got Russell number 3. Again, I think he's going to be consistent enough compared to maybe the other drivers that might go in that slot. I don't think he's going to be so rash that he's trying to prove himself so much that he does, even sometimes what you saw with some of the Red Bull drivers like an Albon or a Gasly, where at times they just seem to really overpush and then it just went to shambles, right? You feel like he's going to take his time even in the first half of the year and then maybe try more guns blazing. But again, I think the other 2 drivers there are more still going to go into this year wanting to be 110% straight away off the back of last year as well. And I don't think Russell will immediately think he's got to get in the middle of that, his own maybe personal progression. So number 2, I have Maxi Boy Verstappen. Again, because I guess I put Red Bull 2nd there. I haven't, obviously, part of Red Bull 2nd is obviously because I think Checo will also pick up the slack a bit as per in my improved driver thing. So therefore,
it's all
I think both
linked.
of them. Exactly. I've thought about it. I did do my research. I may seem busy, but I'm still thinking about it. But I think there's no reason why Max wouldn't continue that surge. Again, I have that almost belief in Red Bull where I think they've learned enough from their mistakes from the past, and they really, now they've got their new swing in place and this momentum, they're really going to be, of course, regardless of which, they're always going to be wanting to keep a strong momentum going when they've had it previously. But again, so even I still think it'll be close between Mercedes and Red Bull as it was last year, but I do pip actually Hamilton to take it over Verstappen. I think, again, this adapting to change thing, not only is it a team thing, but also Hamilton, I think, is a god at adapting, to change and everything. And he obviously would have had a tremendous amount of input as well, being the only one continuing driver into this year, almost, having a lot of the decision. And then we don't need to talk enough about his experience and the calls he's made in the past that have created such amazing success for himself and the team, right? So I think it'll be a cakewalk? I don't think exactly. I think he might have more pressure from a few drivers rather than just Max, but I still think at the end of the day he'll come out on top with Max behind him. And then for 3rd, I think, because I think that Mercedes will be so strong, it's pretty easy for Russell.
You've just swapped out the Bottas with the Russell.
Pretty much, yes. Do I think that Russell will be a stronger Bottas? Yes, but then I don't think that Checo will do enough to get ahead of Russell either. Even though I think he'll be strong, but because I think that Mercedes will be a bit of a step still to the Red Bull, then still a step there as well. Fair enough. That's my top 3.
Right.
Viewers have skipped that bit because that was the boring bit, and now they want to hear your bit.
All we hear is, like, as you're talking, is...
Yeah. It's just handball fair again. Skip it.
Yeah. All right. So top 3 drivers that I have. I have got at number 3. I have got Charles Leclerc as my number 3. Obviously, I predict Ferrari to be second in constructors. So I think there's obviously a lot of talk last year about the Sainz v Leclerc. And how Sainz, he did beat him in the constructors, but I think Leclerc still has, at the moment, a higher ceiling.
Yep.
And I think when he's had the opportunity to, outside of, some early mistakes, the Baku crashing into in the castle section and, making some silly errors, I think he's learned a lot from that. But when he has a car that works for him, he can bring out the best in that car. And
he's a proven race winner in a car that might not have actually been winning, shouldn't have been winning races,
That's it, yeah. And while Sainz is, like your sort of more consistent driver, I would say, and he might be good for bringing home, a good haul of points. I think Leclerc, he's going to be on it enough to score those big points to get him to number 3.
And it is that argument, I'll just say as well, that he does seem more like a driver that when he's really pushed under pressure, he succeeds in that, right? Like you'd say last year, you'd go, well, why did he lose out to Sainz then? But you'd say at no point was the team really telling him, you've got to push 110%. He was also just doing the job that was asked of him, as both drivers were. But if you would ask them both to push hard under high pressure, that's when you see him again going to those heights that we have expected of him, through his career so far.
Yep, agreed. All right, so top 2, I have gone with Max Verstappen as number 2. So
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, so because it's a weird one because I've got Ferrari as number 2 and Red Bull as number 3. Yeah, I mean he's so good. I still expect that Red Bull to be competitive, like really competitive in terms of fighting for wins on a consistent basis. And Verstappen has shown that when he has a competitive car, he produces the goods. So I still think, even though I think Red Bull will end up 3, I still think Verstappen will do enough to get number 2. I think he's just gonna push that car to its limits again, like he always seems to. So and then I have also got Hamilton as number 1. I think what's more to add to what you said, because you were pretty much echoing my exact thoughts about it. His adaptability, the fact that I think Mercedes are going to be, they're going to be strong, and even if they aren't strong, they'll do enough to be strong enough by the end of the season to take that. And Hamilton is the right driver there to take it. And I think I back him to get his 8th this year, 8th championship. For sure. If you ask me to predict lower than 3rd, that's where things I think could get a bit.
I don't even. I was thinking your ramifications here. I'm like, even as a bold call, you could say 3 different teams sponsoring the 3 top drivers is already a pretty good call. I think.
Yeah. Because I haven't even really I had a little think about McLaren and whatnot, and
they were the other one we haven't really touched on that some people subbed for Ferrari in some of those conversations, right?
I think they're going to be 4th, I would say, if I had to pick it.
I think solid 4th, I would agree.
Yeah. Whether or not Norris or Ricciardo jumps into, say, the top 6, I would have to think pretty hard about that, because I've still got to find a spot for, Russell, Perez, and Sainz.
And then how they factor in against the McLaren drivers. Exactly. That's very tricky.
It seems like a safe options for the top 2 in drivers with Hamilton, Verstappen, but
But still, your Verstappen really call is pretty big, considering, as you say, you're not following that same trend almost in the constructor side of things. So
yep, yeah, that's fair.
But I get the rationale behind it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, those were our predictions. Like I said, leave your predictions in the comments, because we've gone. I'm actually surprised we went. I feel like way more similar than we did almost last year.
In some areas we have, yeah.
But yes, I'm very curious to see what yours are, because like Kyle was saying, we've seen some real wild stuff out there. So I'm curious to see what you think and your rationale behind it, because it might be very sound, and I'd love to see if some of them can come true, because I think it could be status quo this year, or it could be a complete shake-up, or anything in between. I don't think really everyone's going pretty much on gut feel and rumors and circumstance, and
it's hard to use this as a change almost like no other for so many reasons other than just the rulebook changes. Yes, we've been through rulebook changes, but not in this way before in this climate.
Teams are saying it's one of the biggest changes that Formula One's ever seen. And that's a big. The Formula One's had some massive changes over the years. Like, that's a big call to make. So if it is as different as people say, then it could be very. Our first race, I think, is going to be a must watch. Kind of, just to see where the pecking order is. But thank you for watching. We'll see in 12 months how wrong we are once again. Again, check out our 2023 driver prediction. We'll leave a link in the description. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Ciao!